There's a little known secret to double the value you pull out of your practice. I'm going to share it with you right now.
This is The Rare Advisor, proud to be a part of the Advisor Advancement Network and home of a business model supercharged by recurring and repeatable events. Your host is Mike Walters, CEO of USA Financial. He is an investment advisor representative of, and securities are offered through USA Financial Securities, member FINRA SIPC, a registered investment advisor.
I help many advisors deal with succession, acquisition, and transition of their practice. So from all the different angles, whether you're trying to grow through acquisition, whether you're trying to pass on the practice from within to maybe junior advisors in part of your succession plan, whether it's a transition where you're actually making the sale and you're going to be transitioning out of the business with a stranger or someone outside of your practice. And there's just many, many different ways to go about this. And every deal is a little bit differently. So we help to coach and mediate and negotiate depending on what it is you're trying to accomplish to make sure that it's the best for you or the best for all parties for that matter. Because that's one of the beautiful things about doing acquisitions, successions, and transitions with financial advisory practices is we're one of the few businesses where what's always best for the seller is equally best for the buyer in terms of making sure that things run smoothly, because that way the buyer is getting everything they hope to get and the seller is getting maximum dollar at the same time. Now, I want to push that aside though for a moment, because what I want to talk to you about today is a little known subset that a lot of people don't take the time to think through properly. Now, I simply call it sell versus coast. Now, most people just automatically assume that sell is the thing to do, but it really has to do with how long you wish to continue to be active. Now, there's definitely a point in time in which you want to go through some sort of a succession plan with your practice, because at a certain point in time, we just need to move on, right? In terms of our retirement or whatever else we want to do, whatever else it is, excuse me, that we'd like to do in life. Now, however, many advisors aren't ready to be done. And so once they do a transaction with their practice, they still want to stay around, maybe as a junior advisor, maybe as a sub-producer, maybe as a consultant, or even just kind of an ambassador to the practice. There's lots of different ways that can happen. But you oftentimes, if you're having struggles finding a proper buyer or the right match for your practice, you might be wiser to actually coast, because coasting can be equally valuable. In fact, it can actually be more valuable depending on the circumstances than actually selling. But it has to fit your lifestyle. It has to fit your personal goals in terms of what you're trying to accomplish. So it's not always best to sell your practice, but it depends on when do you really want to be done. So do you really want to be done, or do you just want to be done prospecting? That's the first question I ask people. Do you want to be done with your clients, or do you just want to be done prospecting? Those are two very different things. And if you just want to be done prospecting, then you need to listen closely as I dissect what it means to coast. So first, let's start with a sell, because there we're going to kind of set the benchmark. Let's keep it super simple. Let's say we've got $1 million of total revenue. 70% of it is recurring revenue. 30% of it is transactional revenue. Generally speaking, I'm going to just go with some real basic industry standards. So let's call it 2.5 times recurring and 1 times transactional in terms of the valuations on revenue. That means 2.5 times the $700,000, 70% of $1 million, would be $1,750,000, representing the recurring component. The transactional component, 30% of $1 million, is $300,000. It's a one-time multiple, so it remains $300,000. I add those two numbers together, and I get just over $2 million. $2,050,000. That would be the value if I sell. So let's just say I get 35% down. That's $717,500. And then I take the remainder and I get paid over the next 4 years. So I get 4 annual installments of $333,125 a piece. I add those 4 together plus the upfront 35%. There's my $2,050,000 paid out over a 4-year time frame. But what if I coast? Well, if I coast, let's assume I'm going to retain the AUM. So that's that $700,000 out of the million. I'm going to retain the AUM, but to keep the math easy, let's just say that market growth offsets any loss of clients. So market growth versus retention ends up flatlining. It becomes a zero. So even though I might lose a few clients, the market growth is offsetting that. So I'm just assuming it flatlines. And then let's assume I do zero transactional business from here on out. So no more commissionable stuff. I'm doing my quarterly or my annual reviews with my clients, and I'm managing the portfolios, keeping an eye on things, and that's it. That's customer service and annual reviews. And I eliminate everything else. I get all rid of those expenses, and I just focus on the coast, so to speak. Well, that means I'd have $700,000 a year of revenue. Again, just the recurring piece. Multiply that over the same 4-year period compared to a sale. 700,000 times 4 is $2,800,000. I'm actually to the positive $750,000 in a coast versus a sell. Now, again, those are very generic numbers, but you get the idea. So I'm to the positive 750,000. And oh, wait, there's a kicker. By the way, I still own my practice and I can still sell it. So maybe if I'm saying, hey, I'd really like to be done in 10 years, but I'm thinking I probably want to do that now and get a little bit of things off my plate, and I'll just kind of start becoming a sub producer or a junior producer and just kind of coast my way through that way for 10 years. You can do that, and there is absolutely nothing wrong with that, and we help people do that all the time. But the other flip side of that is I could coast for 5 years, then sell, and I would have an extra $2,800,000 in that particular example. So something to think about.
This information is for licensed financial professionals only and is not intended for use in soliciting sales from the public. The views expressed represent the opinions of the presenter or their featured guest, not necessarily those of USA Financial or its affiliated subsidiaries. Industry references are generic and not intended to represent actions or beliefs of any individual or entity. Content is only presented to illustrate general principles, beliefs, or ideas and should not be construed as legal or regulatory advice. Trademark and copyright protected. USA Financial and Affiliates.